All right, guys, so we got to talk about a story that the mainstream liberal media will refuse to cover because, once again, it doesn't fit the narrative. But I think that it is extremely hypocritical of the mainstream liberal media not to cover this story, considering how their focus over the last week has been political violence that is plaguing this country. Except the only political violence that they want to focus on is political violence that they perceive that is coming from the right, aka political violence that fits the narrative, regardless of the facts. And we got to talk about a congressional race out of North Carolina involving Republican Pat Harrigan against Democrat Jeff Jackson. Now, this race is for North Carolina's 14th congressional district, which was newly created. And this district is kind of southwest of Charlotte. So it's in South Charlotte, West Charlotte, some in Gaston County. This district is notoriously liberal. And there was an event that happened last October that really does have a whole lot of questions. And I think that it is worth trying to get some answers on, as Republican Pat Harrigan's family home was shot. Okay, it was a bullet found in the home of his family members after the Democrat opponent Jeff Jackson ran an ad featuring Pat Harrigan's home. Okay, so again, the Democrat ran an ad featuring one of the homes of Republican Pat Harrigan, and that night after that ad ran, the family home of Pat Harrigan was then shot. And apparently during the time of the shooting, his kids and their grandparents was at that home. So I want to talk about this. But before I get into it, I want to play a news clip so that you guys can get a more general understanding of what happened in this situation. Take a look.
We're on your side with tonight's cover story. A shot fired into a Hickory home that has a connection to a candidate for Congress. You saw the headline at the top of the newscast. A bullet was fired into a home owned by the parents of Pat Harrigan. He is the Republican running in North Carolina's 14th congressional district. There's a lot we are still trying to sort out with this story, but first, we can show you the picture of a bullet hole in the window of the home. Harrigan says his children were here at their grandparents' home at the time. This happened back on October 18th. It's the same day his Democratic opponent, Jeff Jackson, began running an ad on WBTV critical of Harrigan's gun manufacturing business and his ownership of a Hickory home not far from his parents' home, which is outside the 14th congressional district. Well, this afternoon we broke the news on WBTV.com that Jackson has now pulled that ad from the air. WBTV's Alex Giles is in Hickory tonight, tracking the very latest on this story. Alex, let's start with the investigation. What are police saying about this bullet that we found in this home?
Well, Jamie, to be frank, not a whole lot. We know that there has been a police report filed with the Hickory PD. It just says that the incident has been classified as a shooting into occupied property. No word on a motive as to why someone would have fired a bullet into that home. We have reached out to the Hickory PD asking if we could have some sort of interview or ask about the investigation. And thus far, we have not been able to talk to anyone with the department for extended information about the situation. Jamie?
Yeah, so you obviously aren't live in front of either Pat Harrigan's home or the one owned by his parents that was hit, but you were in the neighborhood earlier today. Tell us, what did you see and hear there?
Very quiet neighborhood, Jamie. Not a lot of activity, not a lot of traffic. Several homes near a lake. I was able to talk to some of the neighbors near the home that was hit by a bullet. One woman told me that she hadn't even heard about the situation. She didn't want to go on camera. She was very surprised to hear that this had happened. I talked to another neighbor who said, yes, unfortunately, she had heard about it. She was very sorry it had happened, but she said, I don't want to comment any further than that. So not a whole lot of buzz about it in those actual communities, Jamie.
But kids in the home certainly makes it all very unsettling if they try to get to the bottom of this. Alex, thank you. We want to bring in our chief investigative reporter, Nick Ochsner. He's been on the phone a lot today trying to sort through this as well. Let's start with the campaigns. What are they saying about this?
Yeah, so first let's talk about what I've heard from Jeff Jackson's campaign. Regarding the ad that was taken down, they say that was done out of precaution. They say they support a full criminal investigation into this. Pat Harrigan, for his part, says that he, won't let this intimidate intimidate him, and then most of his statement, frankly, was focused on other campaign messaging that you've heard from Republicans hitting Democrats on the economy.
So we understand this happened mid-October. How did we first hear about this today?
Yeah, so we first learned about it when we learned that Jeff Jackson's campaign had called WBTV to pull that ad down. And so that's what got us looking into this story.
How common is it to pull an ad?
Well, and that's why our alarm bells went off, right? That doesn't happen very frequently. In fact, it almost never happens. It's pretty rare. And so when we saw that today, we thought there's something that we should look into that could be serious here. And we confirmed that a shot had in fact been fired at this house, and we've been working all day to learn more about that.
And that's the thing, the investigation ongoing. We don't know any kind of motive, whether it was an accident, intentional, et cetera, right?
That's right. That's right. We don't know that, not for lack of trying. What we do know is that police are investigating. We know that this ad started running the morning here, at least on WBTV, the same morning that this shot appears to have been fired, according to the police report. And so we're not connecting that. But you look at those things, the ad coming down, and that's what we know tonight.
Yeah, so here's the thing. When I first heard this story and the way it was being framed on Fox News, right, and other kind of right-leaning outlets, it sounded like the bullet hit the home that was featured in the ad. However, that is not the case. The bullet actually hit Harrigan's grandparents' home. Okay? So, with that being said, I guess the point of this video is this. I don't know if that ad is connected to whoever shot into Pat Harrigan's grandparents' home while his kids was there. I don't know that. But what I do know is that if the roles were reversed, the mainstream liberal media would automatically come to a conclusion that it was the fault of the Republican, right? So is that how this works, right? So what I'm supposed to do is ignore the facts, right? The things that I know in my head that, I'm not necessarily sure if I can connect the ad for certain. But again, if I'm thinking like the mainstream liberal media and how they handle stuff like this, I am supposed to say it doesn't matter. What matters is that Democrat ran that ad featuring a Republican candidate's home, which, hey, you can interpret that as targeting. I'm just saying, you're putting that out there for your supporters to see the home of your political opponent. He's sending some type of subliminal message, right, to his supporters, right, to his radical supporters. And that triggered one of his supporters to go and shoot up one of the family homes of the Republican candidate. Ain't this is how it's supposed to work? This is what I'm supposed to do, right? I'm supposed to just blame any political violence, regardless of whether or not I have the facts and evidence. I'm supposed to blame it on the other side. I'm supposed to accuse this Democrat of inciting violence. He incited somebody to go and shoot one of the family homes of the Republican candidate. Or better yet, it's Joe Biden's fault. It's Joe Biden's fault. Why is it Joe Biden's fault? Because Joe Biden came out here and gave a speech in which he told people that, hey, MAGA, Trump supporters are semi-fascists. We're threats to democracy. We're domestic terrorists. All this rhetoric coming from the Democrat Party, it's your fault. It's Joe Biden's fault. Kamala's fault. Mainstream liberal media's fault. MSNBC's fault. It's all their fault. Right? Ain't this how it's supposed to work? That's how it's supposed to work, because we know that is what the Democrats would be saying. That's what Democrats would be saying, even though I know that, I don't know, man. Like, there are questions here. But I'm not allowed to ask questions. Not allowed to ask questions. I'm simply just supposed to blame the other side, regardless of the facts and evidence. Isn't that what they did with Pelosi? Which, again, by the way, it's just funny, the disparity in coverage here. These same people who now want to talk about, political violence in this country is so out of control, blah, blah, we need to stop it. You have a Republican candidate who had one of his family homes shot, okay, while kids were there. The kids' grandparents were there. No coverage. They're not saying anything about it. Again, we don't have all the facts and details, but we didn't have all the facts and details with Pelosi. Didn't take them long to come to their conclusion in regards to what happened. So why no coverage? Why is it not important? Is this not something that is worth talking about, considering how we're talking about political violence in this country? Of course not, because it's a Republican. Which is exactly what I've been telling you guys. These people don't care about the lives of people they disagree with politically. They don't care. They will only deliver news coverage if it fits their narrative, if it's the life of a Democrat, and only if the life of a Democrat is in danger from a right-winger. Because if in danger from a left-winger or a progressive, they're going to ignore it. Like they ignored the BLM assassin. The guy that was a radical BLM supporter, he was a friend of Joy Reid. He tried to assassinate a Democrat mayor candidate out in Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky. You remember that? The mainstream liberal media didn't cover it. They brushed it under the rug. An attempted assassination on a Democrat politician. Well, the shooter was black, right? He was black and he was a BLM supporter. Goes against the narrative that those groups aren't violent, right? So, hey, we'll toss one of our own to the wolves, right? We don't care if he gets assassinated by the progressives that we support. It doesn't fit the narrative, so we got to ignore it, right? But Paul Pelosi, though, right? We're all supposed to be so upset about Paul Pelosi. Again, a terrible situation that happened, but I'm just simply pointing out the double standard when it comes to coverage. Because I think a Democrat mayor who was almost assassinated by a radical progressive, I think that deserves coverage. Just like I think that a GOP candidate running for House, having his house shot up, or the family home, one of his family homes shot up after a Democrat runs an ad featuring his opponent's home, which I don't know why you would do that. Why would you feature a political ad with your opponent's home? I think that's kind of irresponsible. I think that's very silly. I think it's worth asking questions saying, hey, you know, what might have motivated this? What might have motivated this? Was this because of the ad? Is this something we need to talk about? Is this something we need to address? Maybe, just maybe, Republican candidates don't deserve violence, acts of political violence being done against them the same way that Democrats don't deserve it. But no, because the mainstream liberal media, they actually are okay. They're totally fine with political violence being done against Republicans, because Republicans are a threat to democracy. Yeah, let's just not talk about it, right? Let's not talk about it, and then we're going to virtue signal everybody else when something happens to a Democrat, right? And we can try to frame it to be a Trump supporter, even though that never actually happens, right? That never happens. So again, I just find it amazing how this story has not been covered at all by the same mainstream media outlets that want to lecture us about political violence in the wake of what allegedly happened to Paul Pelosi. Absolutely amazing. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.